let's get started. I want to welcome John Turpik from the Unemployment Law Project. I will let you, John, talk a little bit about what that group does. And I think that's about it. We have a Spanish translation line going, so we have a couple people over there who are hearing your spiel simultaneously in Spanish. So every once in a while, Maricela might tell you to slow down. So just a heads up. And I think that's it. Take it away.
Good morning. My name is John Turpik from the Unemployment Law Project. I want to, as an introduction, talk about the Unemployment Law Project and what we do, talk about the recent rule changes with unemployment, and talk about some of the access issues we've been seeing and how people might be able to overcome those issues. Unemployment Law Project is a statewide organization. We have our website, unemploymentlawproject.org. We have an office in Seattle and in Spokane. We do not charge for advice or information. We want to let people know that you can call us or send an email through the website. Also, we have access to interpreters for any language. We have a system that we can conference in an interpreter, or we may have to set up an appointment, but we do provide language access. You don't have to be in Spokane to use the Spokane office or in Seattle to use the Seattle office, but there is a phone number for each office. And if you do call one of the offices, it's better not to call the other, because then it will create confusion if more than one person is trying to help. But so on our website, there are phone numbers for both offices. So the recent unemployment law has had some changes. They have added some good new rules, like including workers who normally would not have enough hours to get unemployment, workers who are independent or self-employed, like an Uber driver, for example, can now get unemployment under a new system. Also, they have added additional benefits each week, $600 for most people. And also, they have extended benefits another 13 weeks beyond the usual 26. So if somebody is already getting unemployment or somebody was partially employed, that extension may help them. So the law sounds good. There's many, of course, there's always problems with the law, but there's many good features in the new law to include more people. But the big problem has been access to the system. On the website, there is only English and Spanish, and all other languages must call the 800 number. There are many problems completing applications, online, contacting for more information or questions. People are being told for weeks and weeks that their claim is pending. They are not denied, but they're not granted either. And we've had many problems. We've talked to many people. We've gotten thousands of phone calls of people who have tried to call the 800 number and cannot get through. And so this is a particular problem for people with English as a second language or people without access to computers. So we've been, when people call our office, I've been giving people advice to request a hearing, to get a telephone hearing if they are denied, and also advising people to contact their state senator and their state representatives about the problem, because a person in a political office may have or often has a connection to the state, and um, uh, the uh, the I have gotten some responses from people who I suggested that they, contact their state senator, a state representative, that they have gotten a response. But the big problem we see is access. The main function of our office over the years has been to give people advice and to represent people in hearings and then appeals. So right now, I would say over 90% of the calls we get are related to just simply access to the system. So we can go for questions. I know there's many questions.
Yeah, so we have one question in here so far. Besides pending, some are seen disqualified in their account, but have not. I know, I'm sorry, you guys, my cat keeps walking back and forth in front of my thing.
One of the
But they haven't received a letter saying that they're disqualified.
by the way, I love the cats and all these websites I've been doing. It's been the highlight. We've had dogs, cats, babies, and little children's heads popping up into the frame, and it always makes me smile. The question.
Yeah, so the question is that when they look online, their account, it says they're disqualified, but they don't receive the letter.
Right. One of the problems with the unemployment system is that people can be qualified for one reason but be denied as for another reason. During usual times, when a person is denied or disqualified, they are sent a letter within a week or so with a reason why they're being denied and a right to appeal. A very simple process to fax or email or email through e-services, fax or mail, a written letter of appeal that would get them a hearing in a couple weeks. But what we're seeing now, and there's a lawsuit pending on this, they are not giving people appeal rights, to move through the process. Because if somebody had been applied in the middle of March and were denied, let's say 2 weeks later, and requested their hearing and got it 2 weeks later, they would have their benefits by now under normal circumstances. So they don't have enough people and are hiring. So a person in that disqualified, again, in this is a sort of a public event here, so I don't want to individually, talk to people, but I can, you can contact me individually about strategy to work on. But what I've advised people to do is basically, 3 things: is to keep calling the 800 number, to contact their state senator and state representatives. And I'm not talking about Patty Murray, I'm talking about the Washington State House of Representatives and Washington State Senate in Olympia, to contact them. And then also I can give information on how to file for an appeal. And even if they haven't given me the formal letter of denial, I've heard back that sometimes when people file the appeal letter, they will fix the problem rather than send it to a hearing office for a hearing, for a telephone hearing.
John, can I, Kate, is it okay? I just want to ask John one thing about, this is Joel. Just going back a little bit, what were the big changes between current unemployment, our just before the pandemic and then after the pandemic? What are the big changes that it's important for staff who are helping parents and other folks apply for benefits? What do they need to know?
Okay, so a good point, because I forgot to mention something very important, which is, since the beginning of March, they've suspended the rule that you have to be searching for work. That's that's optional. So usually when you file an unemployment claim, you have to make at least 3 job contacts, unless you're in a certain kind of union, but 3 job searches. That's the usual thing. Unless you were officially on standby, that's another thing. I don't want to complicate this too much, but
Yep.
the rule now says you have to be able and available for work, but you don't have to be searching for work. So that's a big change. It's optional, of course. For many people, they can search for work, and it's a good idea for them to do that, but it's not required. The other thing is they got rid of the waiting week for reasons I've never understood. Unemployment has always denied a person for the first week they're unemployed. So that's been changed. That when a claim opens, they will be able to get benefits from that week. And then the other things I've mentioned so far, the extension of 13 weeks, which is done during periods of high unemployment. Every recession in the U.S., the last 80 years, there's been extensions to unemployment. Well, actually, I can't say that for sure, but since in my lifetime, I've heard of unemployment extensions authorized by Congress to give more weeks of benefits. The $600 added to a claim is new. It's to boost the economy as much as possible. So normally a benefit for unemployment would be anywhere from, I don't know, a low end of like, let's say $100 to $750 or so. But there's an extra $600 added on, and that helps people who have an unemployment claim that may only be, let's say $200 a week, so that's very positive.
John, can I,
yes.
can I only get that $600 if my unemployment is directly related to the pandemic? Or is that, I just got into a fight with my boss and has nothing to do with the pandemic and I get fired? How does the $600 apply or not apply to people?
My understanding is it depends on the timing of the claim, and but people have to apply for it separately. One of the most difficult things in my career as a lawyer
excuse me, John. Sorry, this is Marisela. Can you repeat in the beginning? I lost a little bit since the answer to Joel. I'm sorry. Can you repeat?
Well,
sorry.
Okay. Let's see, where were we? Who could get it?
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, it is pandemic related, but a lot of it is to do with the timing. On the ESD website, it gives the criteria for that exactly. But what I'm saying is that people who have applied and their claim is open in this period, in the period of, let's say, March, April, they have been getting it.
Okay.
So we have a number of questions in the chat. One is, so a number of people have been denied due to the retirement question, and they've appealed and then waited for weeks and weeks. I honestly don't know what the retirement question is, so I don't know exactly what this is, but can you speak to that time frame and whether or not when and if they reinstate you and say that you're approved, do you get paid from when you applied, or do you get paid from when they approved it?
Let's see, a couple questions here, both very common questions. One is you should be approved retroactively to the time you applied or the time you became unemployed. So that is the way it has been and the way it should be. And of course, now some people are waiting weeks, but the policy is to go back. the retirement pension issue has been a big problem, and I'll try to explain this simply. The When you're getting unemployment, normally you have to answer a series of questions each week of what possible income you get, because unemployment is not all or nothing. You know, some people can get partial unemployment if they, let's say, work a temp job or a day or work one day, but they should report that income to have their amount adjusted. Okay, so so if they ask you, did you work? And you say yes, and I made $100, you report that, and then that adjusts your claim. And one thing they ask about is, are you receiving a pension from an employer? And a pension is a regular payment. There are some people who retire from one job, but then they keep working, and they get, let's say, I don't know, $1,000 a month or $800 a month from their former employer. And under unemployment rules, they have to report that, and their claim might be adjusted. So let's say they got $800 a month, so that would be $200 a week. So if their unemployment was, let's say, $500, or let's say $600, then they would get about $400, that adjustment. What's been a big problem we've been seeing is that question is very badly written and misunderstood. People think that if they have a 401k, that they can't get unemployment, or other things like that, or people answer the question because it's so badly written that if you have a retirement or pension, you know, having it doesn't mean you're using it. So if you have a 401k or 403b or all these things, that really doesn't count against your unemployment unless you're accessing it or receiving it that week. So it's created a lot of confusion. I was on a program last night with a staff member from Employment Security Department, and she said that question has been causing a lot of problems, and they are working on adjusting the question to make it sound more or to be more clear. So what it means is, are you actually getting a pension? And most people are not, but a lot of people have been denied because of that, or either because they answered the question that they didn't understand the question, or I've even talked to people who have been denied, who somehow are being denied. They're being told they have some kind of pension that will disqualify them, but they don't even have a pension. So there are a lot of mistakes on this issue.
So does the Employment Security Department have any timeline by which they have to respond to the appeals?
Well, during normal times, it's a few weeks, and there are some federal guidelines that an appeal should be processed within a certain number of weeks. But during either periods of high unemployment, and well, there have been problems with the unemployment system in Washington over the years. In 2008, 2009, when there was a big recession, that created a lot of backup and problems in getting hearings. So people weren't getting their hearings in, let's say, 2 weeks. For some people, it was 4 or 5 weeks. Then in 2017, they put in a new computer website system, and that led to many problems, and there were delays in both in applications and in hearings. So I would advise anyone who is requesting a hearing to do it right away and don't wait. If an issue you have is resolved before a phone hearing is set, that's no problem, because you can tell the judge it's been resolved, or you can just withdraw the hearing. So there's no fee and there's no penalty for that.
So John, you mentioned earlier that you could file an appeal even if you hadn't received the official letter with the appeal information. So if you go online and see that you've been denied Can you share with us or send me after this call, is there like a place that people go to do that, or is there a form that they use, or is there something tricky about how that works?
Well, on the ESD website, the information should be there if you can find it. I happen to think their website is hard to use and hard to find. I can email, well, I have with me the address and the fax number, so I could email that to anyone who needs it or wants it, or email it to you. I put my email in the chat, so anyone can email me. I understand that an appeal can be filed through e-services, but I've also heard from people saying they won't let me file through e-services because they say I'm not denied. I've heard all kinds of things. I've talked to hundreds of people, and I've heard various things going on. So the fax number and the address are things I believe they can't refuse. Although I heard one day the fax machine was, I guess, backed up and they weren't taking the faxes. But I can give the mail and the email, the fax and the mailing address for U.S. Mail, the P.O. Box in Olympia. But there is not an email address for this. It would have to be through your e-services account.
Okay, that would be great if you could send that stuff to me, and then I'll share it out with everybody who participated in this call so that you won't get 37 individual email requests.
Yeah. And I'll just say this in general: if you are filing for an appeal, just say you want a hearing, include your name, address, social security number, a brief description of the issue, and then sign it. Make sure it's signed. But I will include that in my email to you.
Okay, great. So a couple other questions here. I've been working full time all year and attending online college. If I get laid off, will I have to quit school in order to qualify for unemployment?
Excellent question. One of the things I most disagree with the unemployment law is the way they often use school attendance to disqualify people, because you have to be able and available and actively seeking work full time. The exception is if you have like a medical issue that only allows you to work full time. That's an exception. But in general, you have to be able, available, seeking work full time. And so what they look at, and I completely disagree with this, but they'll look at your profession. They'll say, okay, you're in the restaurant world. Okay, restaurants are open 24 hours. So even if you're taking a night class, or a morning class or whatever, you may be disqualified for being in school. So the answer to this is very simple, which is if you say they send you a questionnaire about being in school, and they'll ask, where are you in school? What are your hours? What are your classes? Then they ask you, would you be willing to quit school or drop your classes or adjust your classes? If you say yes, you get unemployment. If you say no, you will be denied. So I think this is a terrible thing in the rules, but it is the way it is and has been. And it's especially a terrible result when a person is maybe only in classes a few hours a week, but those classes may conflict with possible jobs that they might get. So I disagree with that, but I put my email in the chat so anyone can contact me individually. Some of these questions are very specific, and I just want to say that I enjoy, speaking to a group like this, but whenever there's a question, I always have 5 or 10 other questions to get more details. So it's, I'm giving what I would consider general information, but I would not want somebody to rely on just what I'm saying here without talking to me individually, because sometimes there's things that are different about individual circumstances that one size doesn't fit all. So.
Thanks, John. Okay, so if a person is undocumented, can they apply for unemployment?
I am very glad this question has come up. Okay, so I want to give you the bad news and the good news. The bad news is under federal restrictions, an undocumented person cannot get unemployment insurance because you have to be able and to legally work in the U.S. or U.S. territories as well. It could be, Puerto Rico or other, U.S. Territory. Now, the good news is that there's been a lot of advocacy in Washington State to come up with an alternative aid program, and groups like One America, groups like Northwest Immigrant Rights, and others are working on that now. So I believe nothing has been set or finalized right now, but there is support in Olympia from political leaders to move ahead with that. So I'm afraid I can't give exact details, but I would say no to unemployment, but there's hope for other assistance coming.
Okay. I think we've already answered the question about back pay. And so the question here is, does everyone get the 600? If a person is partially employed, working reduced hours and claiming partial unemployment, do they get the 600?
It depends. This has been a difficult question. And last night at the webinar I did with the person from the unemployment office, we spent a lot of time on this issue because a lot of people have this question. I'll try to explain this, and it gives me a headache to even think about trying to explain this. So you're eligible for the 600 additional per week if you are eligible for some unemployment, even if it's just a few dollars a week. Now, here's why this creates a problem. Well, let's say a person who's fully unemployed is getting their benefits now, and they are getting, let's say, $200 a week unemployment, regular unemployment, and then that extra 600. So that would add up to 800. Sounds good. But then they get a part-time job, or their employer calls them back part-time, and they are now making, let's say, $400 a week. The sad news is that because that $400 a week is way more than what their regular amount is, then they would lose the 600 as well. I disagree with this, but that's what I'm finding out now. This wasn't a question we dealt with earlier because nobody was getting anything in the first few weeks of this. But now I'm hearing complaints about this, and last night the representative from the unemployment office confirmed that, which really is terrible because then a person essentially loses all of their unemployment, and that person would only have $400 income a week instead of, let's say, 800 if they were receiving unemployment. But when this program was announced with the extra 600, I assumed, of course, it would apply to everyone, but it doesn't. These are very complicated rules that I often don't agree with.
So John, you're punished if you go back and you take a part-time job, they strip you completely of your unemployment. Is that right?
Well, it depends on the amount. so let's say your regular unemployment was, let's say 500 a week. And so then you were getting 500 and the 600. So you were getting 1100. But let's say they call you back part-time and you're only making 250 a week or 300 a week. That's less than your original 400. So then you would still get a partial on your original plus the 600. I can't tell you what a headache
Yeah,
this
make
is
any sense. Yeah.
to try to explain it. I'm not good at math, and I'm also not good at unfairness like this. That is just shocking to me. But anyway,
If I go back part-time, just go back very part-time. Don't go back I don't want to go back too much. I just, okay.
it's not the way it could be.
Okay, here's another one. I have a parent who's been unemployed since March and has not received any type of info, letter,
Katie,
call.
you're going very, very fast.
Oh, okay, sorry. I have a parent who has been unemployed since March and he has not received any type of info, letter, call from the unemployment office regarding his case. What can he do?
Well, I mean, I would like to know more details, but I think, again, going back to the thing of keep calling the 800 number, number one. Number two, contact your state senator or state representatives, and I will put the website for the Washington state legislature in the chat, and you can contact, put in your address and find your district and find out here you have one senator and two representatives, so you can call and email them. They are office holders, your citizens and taxpayers and voters, and people have a right to adequate government services. So I would encourage everyone to call, whether you're a voter or not, or citizen or not, but people should be empowered. And then the third thing would be to file for an appeal, and I can email Katie with that information about an appeal. And I wouldn't suggest doing one. I would do all three.
Yeah, be relentless. That's our motto too.
Yep.
Okay, a couple of questions. Adjudication seems to be taking forever. Some people are being paid during this time, others not. What are the odds of those who are getting paid having to pay back their unemployment?
Well, during normal periods of unemployment, there are problems with overpayments that come up for various reasons, like decision getting reversed due to income, or maybe there was a dispute with the employer over it and it went to a hearing. But I would say that if you are reporting correctly to the best of your ability about income, who you are, your identity, I don't think there's much to worry about. I mean, it can happen. That's why we're here, Unemployment Law Project. When I was a law student, my first hearing I ever did was an unemployment overpayment. I was given a case of a man who had to pay back $300, and I just thought it's outrageous that the government can ask people to pay money back, any amount. And I've over the years have worked on a lot of unemployment overpayment cases. So sometimes they're very small, sometimes they're big, but our office is here to help precisely with those cases. And there's many ways you can fight an overpayment. It might be due to financial hardship, or maybe we can prove that the notice saying that you have to pay money back was a mistake. So again, these are all individual circumstances. I could give you a dozen examples, but again, Unemployment Law Project, go to our website, call us, office in Seattle, office in Spokane, for help. If anyone should get an overpayment notice, read it very carefully and immediately read what it says about filing an appeal. And filing an appeal does not have to be an elaborate legal document. It's just, I disagree. I feel I should not have to pay back, $500 or whatever it is. Name, address, phone number, social security number, sign it, and then they will assign a hearing to that.
Okay, the application for PEUC benefits is popping up for some folks that are already eligible for unemployment and not near the end of their claim. Should they fill this out now? The fear is messing up their current claim. And can you clarify what PEUC means?
Yeah, what is that?
Well, the extension, if you're talking about the extension, then yes, people should apply. People from the state, I've been on a number of these seminars with people from the ESD, and this question has come up a lot. The answer that's been pretty consistent is apply for everything, and we will sort it out. You can't you can't get the unemployment for the people with less than 680 hours or the independent contractors unless you apply and deny for regular unemployment. And then applying for the extra 600 or the extension, there's no harm in doing that. And what I've been told over and over is, don't worry about it. People should apply, report accurate information, and they will accept or deny. The extension, I think, is something that people should think about, because you may not need it. You may be back to work full time long before it was needed. But if it's there, it's probably better to apply for it now and just have it than to run out of benefits and then try to get it later. It just seems like maybe if your period of unemployment goes longer, that it would void a break in you receiving benefits.
So this question is pertinent to hundreds of Head Start and ECAP staff. If you are a teacher and would be laid off anyway during the summer, will you still get the $600 COVID payment, or is that only for layoffs directly related to COVID job losses?
My understanding is that you should get it. So what's frustrating is should versus reality. I've talked to so many people who have been denied or, inconsistent things. Co-workers, one person gets something, the other person doesn't. They're exactly the same situation. There are hundreds of workers at the unemployment office who process claims. People interpret rules differently. My view is, obviously, if somebody can get back to work, more power to you. Go, and if it's safe, of course, don't do anything unsafe. But if you can get back to work, that's terrific. If not, just file. Keep filing for unemployment. Don't. And then if you're denied, like I said, file for the appeal and call the Unemployment Law Project when you get a hearing date.
But John, can I just for clarity, something you said earlier stuck with me. In order to qualify for the $600 boost in unemployment, it's not necessarily dependent on the reason why you're unemployed. It's rather the time period. So if you were is that correct? Am I understanding?
Right. And again, you can go to the ESD website and read details of how they're defining it. But my understanding from people I've talked to from the state is that as long as you're sort of in the gate in this period, in this time period, and I forget exactly what period that goes back to, whether it was March or February, but that you should be entitled to that. And I'll say this has been I'll just say that what's been difficult about doing my kind of work recently is that we're in a completely new system right now. I've been working with unemployment claims for many, many years, and yes, there would be rule changes, and yes, there would be changes, but they'd come very slowly, and they were very small. You know, it would be very specific changes. Now, as of March and in April of this year, there's so much that we've never seen before, and our office gives, you know, people advice, and a lot of the advice we give is based on past history. You know, we could say, oh, you know, a case like that tends to go this way or that way for these reasons. But now we're in this whole new thing where I can't look back or tell somebody that, oh yes, I've done, you know, 7 or 10 hearings on that issue and they went this way or that way. That's why, you know, again, I always think of like, well, I can share what advice I've been getting from the state, but also if people can try their best to go to the ESD Employment Security Department website and just try to read that as clearly as possible to get accurate information.
Okay, we do have one person who's commented that she didn't believe that teachers were considered unemployed, that they're cyclical. Is there some sort of different information there?
There's a thing in the unemployment law, again, something I absolutely despise, called reasonable assurance. And in general, well, I'll give a long answer on this because I think it's probably worthwhile. In general, if you're a full-time school employee, teacher, for example, and you have a year-round salary, you're not going to be qualified for unemployment during breaks, you know, spring break, winter break, summer break, because you're paid basically, you know, a year-round person. So they have rules for educators that disqualify you from unemployment during, you know, let's say normal circumstances. I disagree with the rule because it gets applied to substitutes and it gets applied to like somebody who just teaches a couple classes at a community college, for example. So people who are very, very underemployed get sort of caught up in that rule. What I've been in contact with teachers and substitutes as well this period, and that people did get unemployment during spring break. People who normally would not get unemployment during spring break did get unemployment during spring break. So I guess that's what's telling me is that if people are still unemployed and there's no work, I'm hoping that unemployment will continue even when summer does start. Again, we have never been in this situation before, but if you're not earning income and you have a loss of job, but what I've not seen or not been tested is the difference between somebody who may be doing sort of temporary or part-time or substitute work versus somebody with a full-time salary. So like are the teachers, like with the person who asked the question, are they given like a year-round salary or are they just paid by the hour during?
So it's paid by the hour, John, and this is pretty common in ECAP and Head Start, where we do not pay our teachers like the public schools pays their teachers. I wish we were.
Do people or have people gotten unemployment in the past over the summer?
Many people do. So you may get some follow-up about that. And if anybody does follow up with John on that one, let me know so that I can share it out. With the rest of the crew, because I know this is an issue that'll come up for many programs. A couple other questions.
I want to add something very important on it. This issue of whether an educator can get unemployment during spring break or summer. I've done many hearings about this over the years, and sometimes the outcome depends on the school and whether they're fighting it or not. It depends. That there's like a lot of factors behind the scenes that, you know, that will affect whether someone can get it or not.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So if a person receives communication that they need to do job search, do they ignore it since you said the requirement to job search was suspended?
Yes, this is an issue that has come up in these seminars, that the state, in spite of having now over a month to correct things, are still not up to date. Um, uh, it's one of those things. But the question has to be looked at very carefully, because unemployment, and this has created a lot of confusion and problems. The regular unemployment rule says you must be able to work, meaning physically able, or, to some degree, even if you have limitations. Available for work, you must have time to work. But it's the third prong, the actively seeking, that has been made optional. Okay, and it's why they did make this more simple, I don't know, but so the rule as of the beginning of March, the rule to be actively seeking, to be writing down 3 job searches you made, has been suspended. But I think that individual cases, for some people, that might be a good move. I've talked to many people who don't like their job and want to move on anyway. And they say, well, do I have to look for work? I said, well, you can still look for work. This COVID problem will end, and if you can make job contacts that will help you move along with your career, that's good. So it's not one size fits all. But what's problematic about the state is the number of people processing claims when they don't even know their own rules sometimes, and all the mistakes that are being made. If it were me personally, if I were getting unemployment right now, I would do a job search. It would take me, 15 minutes to fill out 3 applications and write them down. No one's probably going to be hiring right now, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Katie, we have a question from the Spanish line. Adelante, Sandra. Sandra? My question is if there's any support that have small businesses. Is there any support for people that have small businesses?
Okay. The question is about support for people with small businesses. There are a couple things I can say. There is a program to help small business called something like Payroll Protection, PPP. It's known as that abbreviation. And that is a program that businesses can apply, I believe, through the Small Business Administration, SBA, to get a grant that will help them pay people through this time. That is not part of the unemployment system, but that is a separate Small Business Administration, SBA program. Now, under the new unemployment rules, a person who is self-employed may apply and get unemployment. So sometimes a business is very small that it's basically, one person or even just a couple people. It's not like a big company. And so they can apply for unemployment. The rule says they first must apply for regular unemployment. That they would be denied that, of course, because they have not worked the regular hours that would be in a normal unemployment. But then they would apply for the new pandemic programs that include people who don't have the 680 hours of regular work, but are self-employed, for example. And so this person may qualify for that.
So that's actually the topic of another question in here. So Anna Mae, it sounds like, yes, she should, she has a parent who was self-employed and was denied. So she's so yes, I would say should apply for everything else, right?
Mhm. Yes.
Yep. Let's see here. Danielle,
So there's another question from the Spanish line, Katie. Adelante, Reina. I am on the program for small business, and we went to the bank because I'm the treasurer of the small businesses in South Park, and they said that we can apply because the COVID through the small businesses with the IT number, they can apply in the bank. That's why they told me at the bank.
Very good. Yes. Yes, I have heard and read that the banks are processing those loans or grants. Well, it's a loan, but the let's see, the loan is
forgivable
hard
loan.
to say forgivable, so
Yeah.
it's really more of a grant.
Yep, it's a loan that is forgiven if you hire people back.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so so for somebody who is waiting to get a hearing, should she wait to get the hearing, or should she reapply?
Ooh, very good question. I would say reapply at this time. Early on in this whole mess, you know, when things in March started to happen, I was told by people that they should just apply and wait, you know, people at Employment Security. But then when they upgraded the website with the new programs in April, the word was people should apply, reapply, you know, apply for everything. So that changed. So I don't know the timing of this, but I would say reapplying would not be a problem. It may not let you, but you know, again, I'm suggesting that people try multiple solutions.
Right. And then so if you reapply, would you then get the last 6 weeks of pay? Would it go from when you became unemployed, or
empezaría.
Would it become so would your money be back paid when you became unemployed?
If it were granted, it should. They would ask you when you became unemployed, and you would give them that correct information. That should work. I've been hearing different things from different people about some problems. Some people getting benefits, but they didn't go back. I've told them to file for a hearing. So they should, and if they don't, then they should appeal that issue, because they should get benefits for every week that they are unemployed.
Great. So Danielle, I would recommend that you contact John directly. Your questions are getting super specific to you. So let's, and we have to close this because I have another webinar that starts at noon. I want to really, really thank you, John, for your expertise and for doing this. And I will follow up with you to get those resources and share them out to the folks who attended this, and probably more widely with all of the Head Start and ECAP programs out there, because this is such a big issue for our families and our staff and their families as well. So thank you so much for your time.
Excellent. Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Good.
Thank you, everybody.